The weight of 1,000 employees' livelihoods pressed against Sarah Chen's chest as she sat in the corner booth of Romano's Steakhouse, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for the menu. Tomorrow's board meeting would determine the fate of her company's struggling restaurant chain, and tonight's undercover visit was supposed to be a simple assessment to find the problems, document the failures, justify the inevitable closures. She'd done this dance before, transforming from CEO to anonymous customer, watching her empire crumble one location at a time. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold in this unremarkable suburban restaurant that had become the symbol of everything going wrong. Sarah adjusted her baseball cap and oversized sweater, grateful for the anonymity that came with dressing down. After building Chen hospitality from a single food truck into a multi-million-dollar restaurant empire, she learned that sometimes the most valuable insights came from the shadows. Tonight, she wasn't the woman who'd graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune. She was just another customer trying to enjoy a meal. The restaurant buzzed with moderate activity for a Tuesday evening, but Sarah's trained eye immediately caught the telltale signs of decline. Scuffed floors that had seen better days, slightly sticky menus, and servers who moved with the resigned efficiency of people who'd stopped caring about excellence. This location had been hemorrhaging money for 8 months, and her CFO had made it clear, Romano's needed to prove itself tonight or face closure within the week. "Good evening, miss. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The waitress, a young woman with tired eyes and a practiced smile, appeared at her table. "Just water for now," Sarah replied, studying the menu she practically knew by heart. "I think I'll have the ribeye, medium rare, with the garlic mashed potatoes." It was a strategic choice. The ribeye was Romano's signature dish, the meal that had built their reputation. If they couldn't get this right, nothing else mattered. As the waitress disappeared into the kitchen, Sarah pulled out her phone, ready to document every detail of what she expected to be a disappointing experience. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Sarah's patience wore thin as she watched other tables receive their orders while hers remained conspicuously absent. She was about to flag down her server when a quiet voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, miss." Sarah looked up to see an elderly man in janitor's coveralls standing beside her table. His weathered hands clutched a mop, and his kind eyes held an urgency that seemed out of place in the casual restaurant setting. He couldn't have been more than 5'6", with silver hair peeking out from under a Romano's baseball cap, and something about his presence commanded attention despite his humble position. "I'm sorry to bother you," he continued in a whisper, glancing nervously toward the kitchen. "But I couldn't help but notice you ordered the ribeye." Sarah nodded, confused by the interaction. In all her years of undercover visits, she'd never had a janitor approach her table. I probably shouldn't be doing this," the man said, his voice barely audible. He quickly slipped a small piece of paper beside her water glass. "Please, just read this when you get a chance, and maybe consider ordering something else tonight." Before Sarah could respond, he'd melted back into the background, pushing his mop cart toward the kitchen with the invisible efficiency of someone who'd mastered the art of not being noticed. Sarah stared at the folded napkin, her heart rate inexplicably quickening. She unfolded it with careful fingers, expecting perhaps a complaint about management or a plea for help. Instead, she found 7 words that stopped her cold. "The freezer broke. The meat went bad." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She read the note again, then a third time, trying to process the implications. A broken freezer meant spoiled inventory, potential food poisoning, and a health department nightmare that could shut them down permanently. But more than that, it meant this elderly janitor, a man whose name she didn't even know, had risked his job to protect her from getting sick. She looked up, scanning the restaurant for the man in coveralls, but he'd vanished into the maze of tables and service areas. Her iBuy arrived moments later, presented with a flourish by her apologetic waitress. "Sorry for the delay," the young woman said. "Kitchen's been a little backed up tonight." Sarah stared at the perfectly plated meal, the meat glistening under the restaurant's warm lighting. It looked delicious, exactly as it should. Any normal customer would cut into it without a second thought. But the weight of that crumpled napkin in her palm made every instinct scream danger. "Actually," Sarah said, pushing the plate away slightly, "I think I've changed my mind. Could I get a salad instead, and maybe speak with your manager?" The waitress's face cycled through confusion, concern, and barely concealed panic. "Is everything okay? Was there something wrong with the steak?" "No, nothing like that. I'd really like to speak with whoever's in charge tonight." 10 minutes later, Marcus Rivera, the restaurant's general manager, approached her table with the cautious demeanor of a man expecting the worst. Sarah recognized him from his employee file. 42 years old, divorced father of two, 15 years in food service. On paper, he was competent but unremarkable. In person, he looked exhausted. "Good evening, Mom. I understand you wanted to speak with me. Is there anything I can do to improve your experience tonight?" Sarah gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Please, sit down, Marcus." His eyes widened slightly at the use of his name, but he complied, his posture tense with anticipation. "I need to ask you a direct question," Sarah continued, her voice gentle but firm. "Is there something I should know about the kitchen tonight? About the food storage, specifically?" The color drained from Marcus's face. His hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white with tension. For a long moment, he said nothing, and Sarah could practically see the internal battle playing out behind his eyes. How did you?" he stammered, then stopped himself. "Mom, if there's been any issue with your meal, I can absolutely Marcus." Sarah's voice cut through his panic with quiet authority. "The freezer's broken, isn't it?" The admission hit him like a physical blow. His shoulders sagged, and suddenly he looked every one of his 42 years plus several more. "It went down this afternoon," he whispered. "I called the repair company, but they can't get here until morning. I should have closed the kitchen, I know that. But if we lose another night's revenue." He trailed off, staring at his hands. Sarah felt a familiar knot form in her stomach, but it wasn't anger, it was recognition. She'd been in Marcus's shoes before, making impossible choices between financial survival and perfect protocols. "Why didn't you close?" "Because I've got 18 people working tonight who need their shifts," Marcus said, his voice barely audible. "Single mothers, college students, guys with second jobs just trying to make ends meet. This place has been struggling, and rumors are flying about closures. If I send them home early again." He shook his head. "I thought maybe we could salvage the shift, serve what was still safe from the walk-in cooler." "But you were still serving the ribeye." Marcus's face crumpled. "I made a mistake. A stupid, dangerous mistake. I was so focused on keeping everyone's hours that I didn't think clearly about the risks. When I realized what I'd done, I was about to pull all the beef from the menu, but..." He looked up at her with desperate eyes. "How did you know?" Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out the crumpled napkin, smoothing it on the table between them. Marcus stared at the simple message, and understanding dawned across his features. "Miguel," he breathed. "Miguel Santos. He's been a night janitor for 3 years. Doesn't speak much English, keeps to himself, but..." Marcus paused, shaking his head in amazement. "He saved you from getting sick." "Hell, he probably saved me from a lawsuit that would have destroyed everything." Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the restaurant's heating system. "Where is he now?" "Probably in the supplely closet, restocking cleaning supplies. "Mom, I need you to know this isn't how we normally operate. This location has its problems, but food safety isn't usually one of them." Tonight was just a perfect storm of bad decisions and worse timing. Sarah stood up, leaving a $20 bill on the table for her untouched meal. "Take me to Miguel." They found him exactly where Marcus had predicted, methodically organizing bottles of cleaning solution with the same quiet precision Sarah had witnessed earlier. When he saw them approaching, his face went pale, and he immediately began speaking rapidly in Spanish to Marcus. "It's okay, Miguel," Marcus replied in halting Spanish before switching back to English. "She's not angry. She wants to thank you." Miguel looked between them with confusion, his weathered hands still clutching a spray bottle. Sarah stepped forward, pulling out her phone and opening a translation app. "Gracias," she said carefully, then typed into her phone. The electronic voice translated, "You saved me tonight. You didn't have to, but you did." Miguel's eyes widened as understanding dawned. He responded in rapid Spanish, and Marcus translated, "He says he couldn't let someone get sick. His daughter works in a restaurant too, and he'd want someone to look out for her the same way." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, tears she hadn't shed in boardrooms or during hostile takeovers or through any of the countless professional challenges of the past decade. This man, who probably made minimum wage cleaning up after others, had risked his livelihood to protect a complete stranger. She typed another message into her phone. "What's your daughter's name?" "Elena," Miguel replied without needing translation, his face brightening. "Elena Santos. She wants to be a chef someday." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of tomorrow's board meeting pressing down on her again. But now it felt different, and not like a burden, but like an opportunity. She opened her eyes and looked directly at Miguel, then at Marcus. "Marcus, I need you to close the kitchen immediately. Send everyone home with full pay for their shifts. Get that freezer fixed first thing tomorrow, and have the health department inspect everything before you reopen." Marcus blinked in confusion. "Mom, I appreciate your concern, but I don't think you understand the financial implications." "I understand perfectly." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out her business card, watching as recognition slowly dawned on Marcus's face. "Sarah Chen, CEO of Chen Hospitality. I own this restaurant, Marcus. And thanks to Miguel, I just learned something more valuable than any quarterly report could teach me." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at the business card as if it might bite him, while Miguel continued organizing cleaning supplies, oblivious to the revelation that had just rocked his manager's world. "Miss Chen," Marcus finally managed, his voice hoarse. "I can explain." "You already did," Sarah interrupted gently. "You made a mistake, but you made it for the right reasons. You were trying to protect your employees' livelihoods." Miguel made the right choice for the right reasons. He protected a stranger's safety. "Both of those things matter to me." She turned to Miguel, typing into her translation app again. "Would Elena like a scholarship to culinary school?" Miguel's spray bottle clattered to the floor as the translation played. He stared at Sarah with wide eyes, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks as he responded in a torrent of Spanish. "He's asking if you're serious," Marcus translated, his own voice thick with emotion. "He says Elena has been saving money for 3 years, but culinary school is so expensive." Sarah nodded, pulling out her checkbook. "I'm very serious, and Marcus, Romano's isn't closing. We're going to invest in proper equipment, staff training, and make sure something like tonight never happens again. But most importantly, we're going to make sure everyone here knows that doing the right thing even when it's difficult will always be rewarded, not punished." As Sarah wrote out a check for Elena's full culinary school tuition, She realized that tomorrow's board meeting would go very differently than she'd planned. Instead of presenting a closure plan, she'd be proposing a complete restructuring of how Chen Hospitality valued its employees, from the CEO level all the way down to the night janitor who'd had the courage to slip a stranger a note. Miguel's daughter would become a chef. Marcus would keep his job and learn to lead with both compassion and wisdom. And Sarah would carry the memory of this night as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful business decisions come not from spreadsheets and profit margins, but from the simple human courage to do what's right, even when no one is watching. The real test hadn't been the stake at all. It had been whether she could recognize that true leadership sometimes comes from the most unexpected places, and that the heart of any successful business isn't found in boardrooms, it's found in the daily acts of kindness that happen when people choose to take care of each other, one small gesture at a time.